Please put your hands together for James Bates. Brilliant tea and biscuits. James loves a tea and a chocolate biscuit.
You know.
So what's been lovely is seeing you downstairs with your former tutors. How does it feel to be back in the building?
Very nice. Quite overwhelming. I haven't been in this room or this building since 2011, which has been nearly 15 years. I started in 2009. I did a couple of years. Oh, I stood on the stage and hoped. No, when I said, I said very nice, and I said overwhelming. It's nicely overwhelming. But, overwhelming is a funny word, but I think there's a nice version of it, and it feels like this is it.
Take us back then to when you were actually here. So you say you've been on this stage. What were you doing on this stage?
What was it, LPW? Yeah, it would have been an LPW lesson with Vinny. I don't know if it's still the same, but it was about learning a song in the sort of build-up, in a week, like every week, which was very exciting. I can't remember if I don't think I was ever trying to sort of be note for note, and that was actually one of my favourite things, is that was never the objective. Vinny and the guys were very good at saying, we want you to sort of study what you're hearing, but if there's a way you can sort of put even a little bit of your own spin on it, then go for it. And I'd done a bunch of that, in truth, in my earlier sort of teenage years, in the bands that I've been in with my brother and my mates. We were very into doing covers, but we were also the only band in town who were into doing sort of original music. So we had a nice bit of experience of checking it out. And so coming up here, by the way, because I talk about my brother and my mates when I was growing up, before I got to BIMM, but this was exciting for me because I was doing it with people I didn't know, and I wanted to sort of rub shoulders with people who were at the very least like-minded. And that takes me in my mind to the moment that I discovered that BIMM existed. And on the website, on the homepage in 2008, 2009, was a room with seats in a sort of classroom kind of format with guitars all around the walls. I thought, that's where I'll find like-minded people. I didn't know what else to do to get into music. I certainly didn't want to get a job.
So obviously Brighton's very vibrant and diverse, and great opportunities for open mics. Did you take advantage of that? And if so, how do you think that helped you with your performance later on in life?
Wonderful question. Being in here with Vinny and the lads was very important. But it's kind. He's a great bloke. And all the guys here have been very. I feel very fortunate that they were excited about what I was doing or trying to do, and rightly, they were critical but kind about it. Because people here have got their arm around you, and it's supposed to be that way. Out there, whether it's Brighton or anywhere, it's the real world. My favourite thing at the time, because I'm a competitive person, and in hindsight as well, because of the kind of training it was, my favourite thing about going out into Brighton is that it wasn't as big and overwhelming and imposing as London or any other city. I could walk around it or ride my bike around it, or whatever. It felt a little bit more accessible in that respect. I had a guitar on my shoulder the whole time. And I would go into all these different places, all these different bars at the time, that like every other door down the high street had an open mic night on a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, kind of quiet nights, not Friday, Saturday. And whichever one I went into and sort of put my name down and can I stand in front of the mic and do some songs in the corner of this room that's got 7 people or 17 people. Sometimes it was a tiny number, sometimes it was no one, sometimes it was kind of probably too many people for what I was trying to do. But the competitive person in me was going to fucking win them over. And I was going to be the nuisance that stopped the bloke trying to have the heart-to-heart with his mate and make him turn around and put his drink down, even for one section of a song that I'd written or that I was covering. But it was the place that I would try original material and learn a lot. But it was brutal. And that was the best thing. Because what's funny is you're supposed to have such a massive ego at the same time. You're supposed to have loads of pride and push your chest out and say, I'm going to win this room over. But if they turn around and go, you're not really good enough, mate, you've got to also take it away and come back, having worked, practiced, tried harder. And that was my favourite thing about Brighton. People talk about doing their 10,000 hours. This is very much, I think, where I did it.
A lot of your songs are like from like a really emotional place. Do you feel like you always write from like a personal aspect, or do you quite often like find it hard to put even in certain situations like your emotional self on the line and like write from a different perspective, if that makes sense? Like what of your songs are like?
No, I appreciate it. It makes sense. It's a good question. I almost sort of operate somewhere in between. Socially, I'm quite anxious to be vulnerable. I love to be social. As social as I am, I can be so terrified to like share my deep stuff. So how do I deal with that? Yeah, I do a bit of therapy, and that's pretty helpful. But like, not everybody gets to do that. As there's a privileged position that I'm in, ultimately, that means I can do that. So I write songs as a therapy because I'm quite frightened to talk about the things I feel. I don't want this to sound so like, oh, boo-hoo. But I will say that, yes, my songs are emotional in the ways that they are, as far as their lyrics are concerned, because that's how I get that stuff off my chest, and I don't even do it fully. But it gets me that bit closer to feeling a bit more all right. And then for some reason, I need to go and share those things, those songs with like people, have that connection, and then I can maybe feel a bit more all right. I don't know if it's a temporary fix, I don't know, but it's an interesting question. The answer is like, there's something very biographical about so much of my music, but can I talk about how? No, I'm terrified to do that. I appreciate your question, and I know you weren't asking me to do that, but it's such a wild thing to navigate. It's mental, but
Thank you.
yeah, no, absolutely, thank you.
When working with session musicians, do you notice any green or red flags? Anything that you want to keep working?
When you say green or red flags, do you mean like touring, studio?
Just anything you go, I want to call that guy back.
Oh, nice. A few different things come to mind initially. The people I want to call back the most are just nice people. And you know what? Sometimes I've done a couple of run some auditions in my time. Sometimes I don't really like doing that if I can help it. But the times I've done auditions, it wasn't always the best player got called back. No way. When you got to live with somebody on the road, people come for this live thing. They come to have an experience for an hour and a half and then they go. I need someone to be really good, but they don't have to be exceptional. That comes with a pretty big caveat. You've got to be like really hard working. You've got to believe that you're going to work harder than anybody else. And sometimes, even when it's difficult, you've got to just be a nice guy. By the way, touring is so hard. I love it so much. It's difficult. No other job in the world do you like brush your teeth next to the people you go to the office with. You know, in this tiny little bus toilet. That I've had some bougie fancy versions and some like mean ones. And like, it's the people that you sort of, it's always a bit of a gamble, and it's got to start from liking them a bit as a person and enough as a player. And in my case, I like people in the band to sing as well. And even in the studio where you don't spend as much time with people, like you've got to, it's about being a nice hang and you know, can you make a cup of tea? I don't want to belittle what people are doing here. This is an important place where you really hone your skills. Keep doing that. But that sort of gregariousness or sort of social aspect is important. Very, very important. Very social industry. But also it's a very intense industry and sort of experience. So you have to be able to put up with a lot. The other sort of the thing that I'm always trying to just sort of keep an eye on is that it's still an unbearably male-led experience being in music. It's like, gotta be like frickin' 90-10 blokes. So, yeah, I'm trying to do anything that I can to sort of look at the balance and shift it. But then I'm also sort of weighing up, if I'm checking out 5 keys players or guitar players and 3 of them are women and 2 of them men, or 3 of them men, 2 of them women, it's still about the first things I said. It kind of has to be about that first still. But that's a much bigger discussion, I imagine. But session musicians are male or female, non-binary, yeah, so. Good question.
If you was to give any advice to any students here that are leaving and going to go on to big world, what would it be and why?
I like the use of the words big world, because that's absolutely what's happening next. I think it depends what you want, and you might not know. If you're enjoying music, I hope because it's important that music happens in the world that you keep doing it somehow. If you want to be an artist, and write your own songs or as part of a group. Until people come to you because they love what you're doing, you have to be out there loving what you're doing and doing it as constantly as you can. There's so much music out there. It's completely overwhelming. It kind of was when I was here, and it's only more so now. So there's a lot of noise to try and get through. And that's just, I can't sugarcoat it. It's hard. It's so hard. Like, I feel grateful that I've got some songs and some sort of bits from the last 10 years that I can still roll a kind of tour out with. But it's just because I had those doesn't mean that I'll be touring at the capacity that I'm touring at now in 10 years. I'll have to work my arse off to be able to do a tour next year, realistically, to stay in people's consciousness. No one's ever really looking in your direction, even with your Instagram and your TikTok page. No one's ever really, and you can have all those followers on there, whatever. No one's ever really looking in your direction. You have to sort of make noise to get them to look because you're competing with everybody else. So it's a tough question. I want to tell you something that feels a bit Disney and lovely.
You do it.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm never going to do it because one of my favourite things about my journey, not just in hindsight, is that it's difficult. I don't know, I just kind of, from a little bit of experience with people much more successful than me, you know, and experiencing conversation with them, I found out they feel some version of the same. I came here, I wanted it to be a stepping stone. I can't tell you where to go, which door to walk through to have an Adele scale career. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But keep going for it. You know, you got to believe in you. That will make me believe in you.
I do believe in me.
That's perfect. Stay there. Stay with that, and we'll follow you. Nice question.
I was wondering, early on in your career, and maybe now as well, what are some things that you are happy with what your management did for your career, and what are some things that you are maybe not as
less happy? So what some of the best things that they did for me early on in my career, and
Yes.
some things that maybe I didn't sort of understand so much.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or maybe not as happy with.
Yeah, it's a tough one to
That's
answer. Like I was always trying to cultivate a loyal and long-lasting relationship with them, and I always felt like it was about getting to know each other over long periods of time. I guess one of the things I'm happy with, and was certainly very interested in early on, was what they thought wasn't good enough, because I wanted to do that better, and I knew I wasn't where I needed to be yet. So I would kind of turn to them, either explicitly or not, and say, what could be better? You know, I remember they came around to my flat in Lansdowne Place, second time, it was like after that Comedia thing, and they listened to me sit and play some of my songs. And my favourite thing about it to this day is they didn't just sit there, wonderful, brilliant. Sometimes they listen to a song I'd sing, I'd sort of finish and they go, okay. And then say a bit more. And, you know, ask about lyrics that they just didn't really understand, or no, I probably didn't even understand, you know. They were respectful as they could be, but I sort of appreciate, I was 20, and they were like, giving me a sort of shot of reality. Because they were only trying to take this whole thing seriously, because they're trying to like get a business together. That's ultimately what's happening there. I wanted that. I wanted like a career with profit and shit. Truthfully, maybe that's obvious, but doing something that I adore doing. So it's kind of the answer to both halves of the question, because sometimes it pissed me off, and the friction within the pissed offness made me work harder. Sometimes we've disagreed. Okay. Tell you this. Hold Back the River got written, and it was written to sort of sound very similar, as far as the demo, to what the record sounds like that you may have heard. And everyone went, okay, when that got sort of handed in. And then we had a few constructive conversations, and the second version was recorded, which has never seen the light of day, I think. There was thumping from the top. Jumps to the very top. From a sort of, everyone was thinking, well, radio could like prefer that, all these kinds of things. It's fair, it's fine. You know, I'm still trying to sort of find my way onto things like radio. And I think it was around that, I can't remember if it was a different song or that song, but I remember my manager saying to me, after they'd sort of tried to convince the radio plugger people in the radio stations that the thumpy version that they'd asked for was the one, everybody got wind of the version that I'd made. And my manager said, now, I don't want you to do the I told you so dance, but Everyone's decided that. And I'm not trying to sit here and say, hey, check me out, I was right. I didn't have a clue. The point of what I'm saying is I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, I wasn't happy with the fact that they kind of got it wrong and went back with to the version I don't think there's an awful lot that I'm sort of unhappy with. And that's not to say we haven't fallen out. It's important to fall out. I do not want them ever, ever, ever to treat me like some kind of prince. Ugh. What a load of bullshit. Tell me what it fucking is. Tell me, be real with me. Tell me if something's shit. Tell me if I'm being a diva. You know, if something works out for us and they think I've written a good song or done a good gig, clap me on the back, I really appreciate it. That means something to me. I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of them, and don't never just tell me it's good for some other reason. God. Oh.
How do you manage sort of your time and stuff, sort of if you're so busy all the time? Sort of on a personal level?
Yeah, it's very hard. It's a tough question. I want to say something about trying not to obsess over my phone, but I'm not very good at doing that. I'm not very good at not obsessing. I don't dive into social media and reviews, and I try not to sort of obsess over streaming numbers, but I do get a little bit into those, and that's very dangerous. So I'd say one of the answers to the question is to try and be as disciplined as you can with those kinds of things. I'd say actually, to a degree, given the nature of the external and the outward experience of this career, I've been the live and the social experience, not social media, I mean the social engagements and the live experience and the studio stuff. That's such a high that if you can get to a place where those are the peaks, if you can get to a place where you can calmly navigate the troughs in that kind of graph, then you'll probably be managing your time better. What I'm trying to say is there are going to be bits in between all the excitement that feel unbelievably boring. They only feel unbelievably boring because they're not playing in front of 10,000 people at Wembley, which is a very rare thing to get to do, because they're not signing a record deal or a publishing deal, or having 200 people in a bar cheer like crazy at you, or have your two lovely dedicated managers or record label tell you that you've written a song that I think's the best thing since sliced bread. Those are really sharp highs that not everybody gets to experience. And I think in hindsight, if I had done something better, I would have been able to tell myself more confidently that the lows in between those things, they're okay. It can feel, people talk about post-tour blues, it can feel like cold turkey from some kind of drug. It's actually just sort of normal life. It just doesn't compare. I think I could always have managed my time, that's what you're asking about, I'd manage my time better if I'd have not come away from those spiky, exciting moments by thinking, oh my God, what is life if I'm not doing that kind of thing? It was normal. It was all right. I think that's my answer.